Hello Perception Trainers people, and welcome back to another video. So in this video, I'm going to be very controversial in saying, essentially the point of this video is, there is no such thing as an ego you need to get rid of. There is no such thing as an ego you need to get rid of. There is no such thing as an inner saboteur. There is no such thing as a bad part of you. There is no such thing as evil the way that we understand it. These are all concepts that are coming from people who are on the path of awakening, people who are on the process of waking up, who are journeying through the necessary phases of consciousness evolution. But we don't want to get stuck in any of these paradigms because they're not ultimate reality, and they are all have their place where there's a ceiling of how much it's going to benefit you to be in that mind state. And if you're watching this video, it's probably because you are ready to go to the next step. You're ready to transcend that phase of your journey and integrate and see a wider, broader perspective. All right, so again, so much in the spiritual world. And it's interesting how people do this because we don't even notice that we're doing it. We talk about non-duality, and we talk about how everything is God, and we talk about how the truth of reality is we're all one and there's nothing but God and everything is great and there's no evil and there's no sin. And then in the same breath, we say things like, and it's the ego that blocks us from seeing this. It's the ego that's edging God out. It's this judgment that we have that we need to get rid of. We need to get rid of judgment and step into love. We need to get rid of fear and step into love. We need to stop being this particular judging, egoic, thinking that we are a self, or thinking that we have something that other people don't have, or thinking that we are inadequate, the two sides of the ego coin, the either I'm better than everyone else or I'm worse than everyone else, this being in judgment and comparison, saying we need to eradicate this part of ourselves. And of course, if we really take a step back, we can say, well, that doesn't make any sense. If everything is God, and we're all one and it's all God, how can there then be this judgment or this ego that we have to get rid of that isn't God, right? It's one or the other. It can't be that everything is God and there's this thing that we have to get rid of that isn't God. And what I have come to learn in my path and working with every person that I've ever worked with and talking with every person I've ever spoken with, again, what I have come to discover is that there is no bad part of us. There is no wrong part of us. There is no part of us that isn't divine or isn't a part of reality or something we need to get rid of. Rather, there are laws and structures for how the world and this universe that we are living in works. There are certain laws, and that is because in order for there to be form, in order for there to be an experience, there has to be shape. There has to be a structure. If we were living in a universe with no rules and no boundaries and no form, there could be no experience. So again, this is a reflection of reality. There is a lot of reality that is operating here, and every being on the planet is being held to the standard, okay, pain and pleasure, of what we are complex enough to understand about this reality and align with. So like I've said in past videos, a lion doesn't feel pain when it eats an antelope, when it murders another being for its sustenance, because it is not sufficiently complex in order to be able to understand that and live in alignment with a higher way of being. Humans feel guilt when we murder other humans because we are sufficiently complex to align with a higher level of understanding of unity, and therefore we live longer, we have longer lives than pretty much all other animals on the planet, other than there are a few aquatic animals that live longer than us or live equal to us, and it is very possible that they are as complex as us. This is why. Anyways, bottom line is, the pain-pleasure standard we are being held to. When we feel pain, that is our sense perception machine. Every photon in your body that is making up what you are right now is binary, reacting pain, pleasure to life generating, life degrading. This is building, this is in alignment with the structure of life, the experience we are having. This is out of alignment with the structure of life. We're learning about reality through this experience. Consciousness is in a body, it's in form. Form is a reflection of the structure and nature of reality itself. And we either break ourselves against it, try to behave in a way that reality isn't, the universe isn't, consciousness isn't, that we are not. We feel pain because that is breaking ourselves against reality, or we feel pleasure because we are building ourselves. We are a part of the construction. We are part of the conscious co-creation. Because again, remember, reality, God, is constantly evolving. That's a part of life, and therefore it's a part of reality. Anything that is growing, learning, changing, evolving, expanding is being fed. Anything that is breaking itself against the laws that we already know, or breaking itself against the laws in general, is degrading. We are learning from both experience. Neither is right or wrong. Neither is good or bad. They're both learning. But that's why pain and pleasure are not a judgment. Pain is not a punishment. Pain is simply a messenger. This is working against how reality works. You are breaking yourself against reality. And you will discover this as you work through your judgments of what pain means and what pleasure means, and kind of transcend this idea that pain is bad and pleasure is good, or pleasure is good, bad, and pain is good, and all these stories we have around good and bad and right and wrong and judgment. That's not a thing. As you step into universal perspective, you're just going to see. It's just, this is life enhancing, this is going with the structure, this is life degenerating, it's going against the structure. There's no right or wrong, it's not judgment. And like I said, we are being held to the standard of what we are sufficiently capable of understanding and living in alignment with. So does that mean that there are laws of the universe that we are continually breaking, that we don't feel? Our photons don't pick up on it. There is no sense of pain or pleasure when we do something that's out of alignment with reality, because we are simply not complex enough to be able to understand that part of reality? Absolutely. Just like the lion who eats an antelope and does not feel guilt because it is not sufficiently complex to ever understand that. We are also in a reality where there are so many things going on that we will never understand. We will never perceive. We will never see, because we're not complex enough. And that's okay. We're being held to the standard of what we're complex enough to understand and live in alignment with. Only that. And you'll discover this for yourself. You don't have to take my word for it. So with that, we are all, as humans, traumatized. And what I mean by trauma, again, is we are experiencing pain that we don't understand and that we have made up stories about that are not in alignment with real reality, so we can't actually get out of our pain. And then that pain becomes suffering, continued pain that we don't know how to fix because we don't know why we're in pain, and therefore we don't know what the cause is, and therefore we can't figure out what the solution is. We're not seeing that all pain comes down to that's just not how reality works. You're trying to get a need met that you either don't know that you have, you don't understand what it actually is, or you don't know how to meet it in real reality. That is why we are in pain. We need something in order to keep living, in order to keep evolving, keep expressing, that we're not getting. We're getting something that is antagonistic to our growth. Or we've been shamed in a way that makes it so that the unknown, when we don't know something, when we don't have an answer, when we get in pain and we don't know how to get out, when we admit to ourselves that we don't know what's going on, and then there's shame and guilt about that, that's a learning trauma, we are stuck in suffering. And what the ego is that we all label as the ego, the inner saboteur, the part of us that's edging God out, the part of us that's in fear, the part of us that's in judgment, the part of us that attacks others, the part of us that feels attacked, the part of us that doesn't understand unity, that breaks ourselves against reality, either through being a perpetual victim or a victimizer. What that really is the traumatized inner child. Because ultimately, the human experience that we're having is we are at a place of complexity where we're discovering that by being our true full selves, by understanding that we all have seeds of this is what we are. We are all like a garden born with certain seeds. And we are specific in this way. So yes, we have access to universal consciousness. Yes, we have access to all that is. But as this being, as this avatar, as this portion of reality expressing itself, this thread in the tapestry of God that we are as an individual, is how God is learning about itself and eventually how God is expanding itself through each individual having their individual experience, carrying their individual seeds and growing those seeds. So when we are traumatized as children, where we are traumatized is that we are told that we are not allowed to be the seeds that we are. We are not allowed to grow those seeds, that we have bad seeds, that we have to be seeds that we aren't. That there's something missing in us, there's something lacking in us. What we are is not good, or what we are is fine, but we're missing something. And we have to be something that we're not. Or, like I said, that third trauma of the journey of growing what you are, the journey of not knowing, the journey of continually going into the unknown, experiencing pain, which is part of growth. Pain is always going to be a part of growth. We are always going to learn about reality through experiencing what it isn't, but that does not mean we have to suffer. When we integrate our learning trauma, what that really means is we can start to experience ourselves and what we desire, and continually going after the unknown, continually going into, I want to become something I've never been before. I want to do something I've never done before. I want to be something I've never seen before. I want to experience things that I've never experienced before. That there's constantly going to be this desire to go out and evolve. And then we're going to have pain because it's not going to work out. We're going to go to be, do, have, experience what we want. We're going to have pain. See, that's not how it works. And when, like I say, when we heal, integrate that learning trauma, pain no longer means we're bad. Pain no longer means we're wrong. And not knowing no longer means we're wrong and bad and shameful and should hate ourselves. And instead, we are willing to take the risk. We're willing to go break ourselves against reality a little bit and then learn from that. Actually lean into the pain. What is the pain telling me? Okay, right? Because again, all of us have this learning trauma that if I go out and do something and it's pain, that either reality got it wrong, I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing over and over and over again because I'm right, and reality is going to give it to me in my way sometime. Or this is reality telling us that we can't have what we want. When the real truth is, we can always have what we want. We just have to figure out how to get it in real reality in a way that is consistent with how the universe works. And so this is what we're learning, that the human experience is really about discovering what seeds we have, discovering what those seeds want to grow into, and then continually stepping into the unknown as we allow these seeds to evolve. Depression, anxiety, fear, all of this comes from us shutting down the seeds that we have, from us trying to be seeds that we're not, and from us not allowing ourselves to learn from pain and pleasure. Not allowing ourselves to say, we don't understand how reality works, and we are never going to fully understand how reality works. We're going to continue to learn about it through our experiences. Okay, pain, so that's not how it works. So then that leads to trying this thing, which leads to pleasure, which leads to an outcome that we want, which leads to a new desire, which leads to more trying it how we think it's going to go. And what we learned about the universe the last time, and then we still have a little bit of pain because it didn't work quite that way. Okay, so then that lets us become more complex and learn something new, which then leads to pleasure, which then leads to the creation of that thing that we desired, which then leads to a new desire. And these seeds have infinite potential. This is where our infinite potential comes from. So it's not that we can be anything. Again, I can't be a 6'4" African-American basketball player. That's just not in the cards for me. But what I am, the seeds that I am, have infinite growth potential. If I'm always nourishing them, if I'm always allowing them to evolve to their next level, I'm not looking to become complete. I'm not looking to know everything. I am no longer seeking heaven. I no longer have shame about my desires that I don't know how to meet, and I'm just going for it, and I'm going to break myself against reality. I'm going to have pain. I'm going to make mistakes, but I'm going to learn from it. That is an enlightened life. So what does this have to do with the ego? Again, what we are calling the ego, the parts of us that sabotage ourselves, the parts of us that scapegoat, the parts of us that cope, our coping mechanisms, the parts of us that judge, the parts of us that are in fear, that are in shame, that are feeling attacked, that are attacking, that can look evil, that can look victim, that can look victimizer, all of these parts that we're calling our ego, that we're saying this can't possibly be part of God. No, those are the parts of you that got shamed in your childhood, that you were not allowed to be how you are, and you are not allowed to learn. Those are the parts of you that got shamed in your childhood, that are telling you you are not allowed to be who you are. You are not allowed to learn. Pain means you are doing something wrong. And in a lot of ways, most of us were also taught that pleasure means that you're doing something wrong. That which was natural to you, that which felt like pleasure to you, either it was your true self that your caregivers rejected, or it was a part of your growth path. So you were maybe on a destructive phase, like the terrible twos, where you hit other children because you need to learn in your 2-year-old body that violence doesn't work. Through interacting with reality, hitting the other child, and then having an adult sit with you and say, how did that feel? What did it feel like to hit the other child? How does it feel to compromise? And then you tuning into pain and pleasure as a 2-year-old would feel better compromising, would feel better interacting with this other child in a cooperative way. And you would learn from reality, from pain and pleasure, that cooperation feels better. You wouldn't have to stop yourself from hitting them. Hitting would feel worse than cooperation, and so you would naturally choose cooperation if you were allowed to go through that learning phase. And again, we humans are so afraid of the deconstructive phase, the autopsy phase, the breaking reality apart phase, the pain phase of learning. And we have made it wrong. And that is not how reality works. We are always going to learn from the destruction. We are always going to learn from the autopsy. And if we start to allow ourselves to do that, we are going to have so much less trauma and drama around all of these things. But anyways, these parts of ourselves that got shamed, blamed, cast into the shadow are the immature parts of ourselves that never got to grow. The immature parts of ourselves that have needs that are not being met. This is why we are suffering. They are parts of ourselves, like I say, that are stuck in childhood. And they are stuck in childhood because of the way our nervous systems work. Our nervous systems are programmed that love equals safety, because in our childhoods as humans, when we are 0 to 7, completely dependent upon our caregivers to care for us, if we are not loved and accepted by our caregivers as emotional beings, they may not take care of us. We feel intuitively, instinctively, when our caregivers pull away, threat to our survival. This activates our nervous system. And then we go about trying to change whatever it is that we can change. And as children, the one thing we have control over is ourselves. We cannot change our environment. We cannot meet our own needs. We cannot understand our own needs. We are completely dependent upon the gods that are our caregivers. And they are indoctrinating us into what is right and wrong, what is good and bad, what reality is and isn't, what should feel good, what should feel bad, how we should be, how we shouldn't be, the pain that's wrong, the learning that's wrong, all of these things. And so our nervous systems are being programmed that when I feel good about doing this thing, mom pulls away, that's threat to my survival, so shove that away. So now this seed of you that is always going to be there, that is, whether you like it or not, a part of who you are. And what needs to be grown for you to be your higher self, connected to God, because this is what God is in you. Each one of the seeds that is inside of you is God. When it's not allowed to grow, it ferments. It doesn't get its needs met. It's not understood. It's not seen. It's not being integrated into consciousness. Something that's understood and then evolved. It's now being something that's ignored. That is anti-life. That is anti-reality. So now we have these parts of ourselves that are literally operating antithetical to life. We're shoving parts of ourselves down and away. We're trying to become things we're not. We're not allowing ourselves to go on natural learning journeys of breaking ourselves against reality, learning from the pain of that, and having it evolve us. We're trying to resist the pain. We're trying to learn without learning, right? We're told not to hit, but we don't know why. We never really learned it through experience. So then we become aggressive adults, or we become OCD adults who are constantly trying to follow the rules and remember what the rules are and what's the right thing to do, and I don't know, and I don't know, and I don't know, because we never learned. We're trying to memorize rules. We're trying to follow the book because we don't know for ourselves through our own experience. This is pain. This is pleasure. This is life generating. This is life degenerating. Why that is? Because we went through it. We're not learning from reality. We're trying to learn from consensus. And so we're all confused. And this, right? And then we get into this, there's parts of ourselves that are sabotaging who we think we should be, and that's our true self. Sabotaging our conditioning. And then we have the other parts of ourselves, our nervous systems being activated when we try to go for what we really are, but our nervous system is programmed that made mom and dad reject me, and I don't feel like a confident, capable adult. It gets sent back into childhood every time I feel that rejection. Every time I feel myself becoming something that I got shamed or blamed for in my childhood, your nervous system kicks in. Stop that. Don't do that. That's a threat to my survival. You sabotage yourself. You go binge instead. You go drink instead. Right? We have all of these behaviors that we do that we think are against ourselves, when really everything is just trying to help us. Our nervous systems are just very confused. And again, now this whole ego paradigm, we are re-traumatizing ourselves every time we step into that way of thinking. There is something wrong with me that I need to fix. There is a part of me that is broken that I need to fix. There is something in me I need to get rid of so God can work through me. I need to get myself out of the way so that I can channel the greatness. This is all childhood trauma re-traumatization. We are now taking the role of our caregivers that rejected parts of ourselves because they didn't understand them, and in so doing, sent us into a state of fear, sent us into a state of crushing what we actually are, not allowing ourselves to grow, so we are now seeds that are fermenting, seeds that are not getting their needs met and can't grow into what our greatness is. So, and again, this is something that I know is so hard to wrap our minds around. But the real honest truth is that every part of ourselves, the judgmental part of ourselves, the part of ourselves that drinks, the part of ourselves that hits other people, the part of ourselves that murders other people, literally the most extreme, horrible thing you can think of is a trauma response. This is a part of me that is not being understood, is not getting its needs met. And the degree to which we are coping, the degree to which we are in self-destruction or outward destruction, is not the degree to which we have edged God out and we have these bad parts of ourselves. It's the degree to which the seeds of that which we are not being seen, are not being nourished, are not being understood, are not being allowed to go through their natural growing process, and now we are fermenting. And again, every single time we judge ourselves, we are re-traumatizing ourselves. We are keeping ourselves in the cycle of whatever it is we think is wrong with us. We're trying to transcend the ego that causes us to binge. We're trying to transcend the ego that causes us to judge. We're trying to transcend the ego that causes us to separate us from God, that we're not creative, we're lazy, we're sloppy, we're mean, we're whatever it is. Every time we judge that part of ourselves as bad and wrong, we initiate our nervous systems, which safety, love equals safety. Safety is what is required for growth. Remember this. Love equals safety. When we feel safe, we grow. It's as simple as that. When we feel unsafe, we cannot grow. We go into survival mode. We go into do whatever I was trained to do as a child to fit into my environment that was antagonistic to me, childhood. And like I say, even if your childhood wasn't abusive, even if there wasn't abuse, even if it was your parents loved you so much and they were doing the best they could and they were just projecting their misunderstandings of reality onto you. They were afraid that if you were this way, you would be rejected. They were afraid if you did this, it would be bad for you. They were just projecting their fear onto you. It had nothing, they loved you deeply, but you weren't safe to be yourself. You weren't safe to go through your learning process because they just didn't understand. It doesn't matter. If your parents were completely narcissistic and malicious, neglectful, abandoning you, actually outright abusing you, to they loved you and cared for you as much as they possibly could and just didn't know any better. It doesn't matter. That traumatized you. That stopped you from feeling safe, and that stopped you from going on your learning growth path. You tried to get rid of parts of yourself, so they started to ferment. You tried to become parts of things that you are just never going to be, and now you have this all internal chaos. You never learn to learn from pain and pleasure because all these stories about pain and pleasure, religion, pleasure is bad. We all have these stories. We all have this meaning that we've attached. And this is what we are labeling the ego. And like I say, every single time we judge ourselves, every single time we try to get rid of it, every single time we tell ourselves, this is a bad part of me and I'm going to fix it, we are re-traumatizing ourselves. We are putting ourselves into a state of fear, which what? Makes growth impossible. So this whole idea that you're going to get rid of your ego, this whole idea that you're going to get rid of this bad part of you that's edging God out, this whole idea that there's any part of you that isn't God, is keeping you stuck exactly where you are. And I think we're going to finally have to admit this as a spiritual community. This whole I'm going to transcend my ego thing, there's parts of me that are bad. The people who believe that are stuck in their shit. And again, it's not their fault. They're not doing anything wrong. This is why the teachers that we watch don't practice what they preach as much as they want to, as much as they know in their head what they're saying is right. They don't live it because they can't, because they're stuck in trauma. They're doing the same thing over and over and over again because their nervous system is feeling their rejection, which then just says, do what you've always done. I'm being rejected. I'm not safe. Do what you've always done. That's how we survived. That's our nervous system. You learned how to cope in your childhood through doing what you did and to your nervous system. That saved your life from the threat of your parents not loving you. Either getting rid of something. So this is why, again, people will be like, how in the world is binging or purging or alcohol or beating someone or getting into a fight or picking a fight with my husband or whatever, how is that what I learned in my childhood to help me survive? That doesn't make any sense. It's what you're doing right now to not beat yourself. These are the tools you're using to keep yourself down, to not express what you are. It may not be that this was an expression that helped you live. It's just this is how you learn to not express what got you rejected. So it's not that your binging is like a life-saving mechanism that got your parents to love you, but your binging helped you not be what got them to reject you. So you do it. Every time you feel that coming up, you binge to save yourself. You're just trying to save yourself. You're just trying to live in this world of consensus reality where you think you have to be this specific way, that you aren't. And you think that you can't be a way that you are. And you don't feel safe to learn. That's all this is. So this ego paradigm, this I have to get rid of the judgmental part of me. I have to get rid of the fearful part of me. I have to get rid of the part of me that does these bad behaviors, is re-traumatizing your nervous system, keeping you stuck in it. The only way forward, actual evolution, is how is this part of me God? That's the radical question we want to ask ourselves. This is not ego. This is God being misunderstood. This is God who didn't get to grow. This is God that doesn't feel safe, isn't getting their needs met. I don't understand what my needs are. I don't understand how to get them met. And I don't understand how reality works so that I can get my needs met in reality. That is why I am acting this way every single time. There is no exception. There is no feeling that you can feel that is out of alignment with truth. We can think thoughts that are out of alignment with truth, and those thoughts can generate a feeling that we then think, right? So again, when I say everything that feels terrible isn't true, so you might think to yourself, I have a headache, and then that feels terrible to think, but it's true. So how can you tell me that a thought that feels terrible isn't true when it's very obvious I do have a headache and then that makes me feel terrible? Okay, what are you making that headache mean? I'm always going to be in pain. I don't know what to do to get rid of this headache. This headache always happens to me. My body is broken. I'm stuck in pain forever. I'm a victim to this pain. I hate my body and I don't want to be in it. This is why that thought hurts. The thought I have a headache should feel neutral. When we are not making it mean something it doesn't mean. When we're not telling ourselves a story about it that isn't true. So it's not to say that our thoughts are always the opposite of whatever we're thinking. The truth is the opposite of whatever we're thinking. We need to understand we are complex meaning machines. And then again, the feeling is just binary. It's non-judgmental. It's just wrong, right, wrong, right, wrong, right. As in reality, not reality, reality, not reality. So we need to become good at discerning. What's the detail here? What is the feeling actually telling me? This is emotional mastery. But ultimately, we need to understand that if we are really truly going to become our higher selves, we're not getting rid of anything and we're not adding anything. We're taking what we are, that's in the shadow right now, and we're evolving it. Your addictions will evolve into understanding what need you actually have and how to get it met properly. You are addicted to what you're addicted to because that substance or that thing gives you something that you need. that you don't understand that you need right now, or that you're telling yourself you're not allowed to need right now, in a shadowed way, in a partial way. It's partially meeting a need that without the addictive substance you don't meet at all. So when you lean into, what am I getting out of this? What is the positive intention? What is the benefit? What do I lose when I give this thing up? Because there's a lot of things. A lot of addicts stop one substance and then just become addicted to something else. You get off alcohol, you become a food addict. You get off alcohol, you become a people pleaser. You get off alcohol, you become addicted to sex. It's all just, we didn't understand the need. There's a need that's not being met, or that's being partially met in a shadowed way. It's all this. All of my behaviors, we start to say this, all of my behaviors are good. All of my behaviors are God. I just don't understand what I need. I don't understand what I'm getting that I don't want. I don't understand what I'm not getting that I do want. And I don't understand how to get my needs met in real reality. And that is okay. It's all God. All addiction is just, I don't know how to get my needs met. All self-sabotage, I don't know how to be my real self in this reality. All judgment and all fear is, I'm trying to protect myself from a reality that I don't understand because it caused me pain. We're traumatized. We're in pain. We're confused. But we're God. Everything you channel through is you. Just a part of you that your consciousness doesn't identify with right now. You're not channeling anything. You're bringing through yourself when you're in an altered state of creativity. It's just you that you don't normally identify with. Right? Your higher self is a part of you that you don't identify with. It's these things that don't fit in the box of who you have been told that you are. So when you act that way, or when you say that wise thing, or when you do that creative thing, you think, well, that must have come from somewhere else, because that couldn't have been me, because I don't identify as being someone who knows how to do that or who understands that. But it was you. So all of this needs to become, this is all a part of God that wants to be understood. Every part of me is good. Everything that I am not, I will never be, and I don't have to be. Because the more you step into understanding and accepting and embracing radical self-love, what you actually are, right here, right now, the immature things, the in fear, the chaotic, destructive, all those parts of you, you bring those into the light of love. You start to ask the questions, how is this God? What does this part of me need? What's the story I'm telling myself about this, and how does it feel? It's not true. Okay, keep investigating. Where am I trying to be something that I just simply am not? Where am I not allowing myself to be what I really am? Where am I not acknowledging my greatness because I'm afraid of getting rejected and abandoned for being as great as I am? Because this is the other part. So many of us keep ourselves trapped in our traumas and our dramas because we simply are so afraid to be our real, true, huge selves because we were rejected for that. We were rejected for our light a lot of the time, way more than we were rejected for any shadow. We're running from our light. We're getting all caught up in this ego thing as another distraction to just not acknowledge who we really are and not be it. Because we're afraid that we're going to die if we are, from our nervous system. So go back and watch all those other videos, come to my mystery school, we can heal the nervous system. But this is why this ego complex, we got to transcend it. It's keeping us trapped. You're just afraid to be who you are, and that's because of your caregivers, the society telling you that you can't be that. You're an adult now who can get your own needs met. And you just step by step, inch by inch, you make room for everything that you are. You love everything that you are. You step out of this ego paradigm into everything is God, just needing to be grown, seen, understood, and evolved. And humanity might not understand, and that's okay. I'm going to find my place in reality because reality is reality-centric, not human-centric. You will find your truth. There is no ego. your ego is God, meant to be how it is. So join the mystery school, like, subscribe, do all that fun stuff, and I'll see you in the next video.